The majority of individuals will be able to provide you with significant dates and historical facts regarding the Second World War. However, were you aware that Britain had the lowest level of rationing in Europe? Or that Germany had a distinctive approach to treating its aviation aces? In this section, historian James Holland discloses numerous obscure details regarding the conflict. In this video, we will explore some fascinating facts about World War II. Let us commence. In 1940, France possessed a greater number of tanks, weapons, and personnel than Germany. It is universally believed that the Germans achieved victory during the Second World War by bludgeoning their way through a highly modern and mechanized army and air force that surpassed anything the Allies could muster in May 1940. The actuality of World War II was vastly different. When the Germans launched their attack on May 10, 1940, only 16 of their 135 divisions were mechanized, meaning they were equipped with motorized conveyance. The remaining items were contingent upon the use of horses, carts, or foot power. There were 117 divisions in France alone. Germany possessed 7,378 artillery pieces, while France possessed 10,700. Additionally, France possessed a greater number of firearms. It did not end there. The French had 32-54 tanks, while the Germans could only muster 24-39. The French tanks were mostly larger, better mounted, and more armored than the German panzers. The United Kingdom's emphasis on manpower is unexpected. Before the war commenced, Britain had resolved to prioritize air and naval power as the primary focus of its fighting capability. It was not until the collapse of France that British powers recognized the necessity of a substantial increase in the size of the army. Nevertheless, the Ministry of Aircraft Production was the primary focus of the UK's manpower requirements until the spring of 1944, rather than the Navy, RAF, Army, or Merchant Navy. Britain alone constructed 132,500 aircraft during the conflict, a remarkable accomplishment, particularly because Fighter Command in the Battle of Britain never possessed more than 750 fighters. The losses of Allied merchant shipping were a mere 1%. Allied shipping losses in the North Atlantic, Arctic, and home waters during the Second World War were a mere 1.48%. In total, there were 323,090 individual sailings, of which 4,786 were sunk. Of these, 2,562 were British. However, on an average day, approximately 2,000 British ships were operating in various locations worldwide. Even though a few convoys were severely damaged, the majority were relatively secure. Independent sailings and stragglers from convoys were the most severely affected. However, the convoy system's drawback of requiring quicker independent sailings to reduce unloading time and congestion was addressed. The Japanese possessed kamikaze missiles. Rocket-powered aircraft were not exclusively employed by the Germans during the Second World War. Despite their initial victories, the Japanese were unable to keep pace with the technology of the United States and the United Kingdom. However, they did manage to develop the Oka, or cherry blossom, a human-guided anti-shipping missile powered by rockets. This missile was employed as a kamikaze weapon after the war. The aircraft needed to be transported by a mother plane to reach the target. Upon release, the aircraft would glide toward the target, which was typically a ship. The pilot would then launch the rockets, causing the aircraft to crash into the target at speeds of up to 600 miles per hour. The Oka pilots were referred to as Jinrei Butai, or Thunder Gods, but they were only able to torpedo 3 Allied ships. It was a significant amount of effort and sacrifice for a small amount. In Europe, Britain experienced the least amount of rationing. France and Britain initiated the war without rationing, and although it was modestly implemented in Britain in January 1940, France continued to resist until their defeat in June 1940. Conversely, Germany implemented rationing before the war and encountered difficulty in providing sustenance to its armed forces and general populace throughout the conflict. The demand for food from occupied territories by the country resulted in widespread starvation among the population, including the urban French. British citizens were never allowed to go famished, and while certain foods were restricted, numerous others were not. Certainly, Britain had it significantly easier than the rest of Europe by 1945. Field Marshal Alexander was the most experienced battlefield commander of the conflict. By the conclusion of the conflict, Field Marshal Alexander was recognized by all British citizens. However, his reputation has declined since then. He was the sole officer of the conflict to command frontline troops at every rank, and his career was nothing short of extraordinary. He commanded the Nocera Brigade on the northwest frontier in the 1930s, the 1st Division in France in 1940, and British forces in Burma in 1942 after achieving the rank of acting brigadier during the First World War. Before he was appointed Supreme Allied Commander in the Mediterranean, he served as commander of the Middle East forces in 2 army divisions. Additionally, he was distinctive in the British Army for having commanded German troops in Latvia during the conflict against Russia in 1919 to 1920. If you watched this far, please share your thoughts in the comments box below for more fascinating subjects. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.